Alright, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all the honor, the praise, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Chakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of great millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations to the elect scattered abroad. Alright, this is the brother Barbazal, here with a lesson, and Lord willing, it's edifying. Alright, so just wanted to get into a quick lesson through the Spirit. So today's lesson will be entitled, the kingdom is the end goal, right? And what do I mean by the kingdom is the end goal? Well, it's because we're not focused on, we're seeing past, Babylon, right? We're seeing past, what's here, right? All the hell we catch. Everything that's going on, being in captivity, working at 9 to 5, trying to get, rich. All right, things of that nature, we see past that. All right, we understand, of course, through the wisdom, knowledge, and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, right? While we're in the estate that we're in, and, what to do to get out of it, Lord willing, right? And, with all that being said, one thing that keeps us, comforted through all this hell is knowing that, we at the end, and, sooner than later, it'll all be over. And, once it's all over, we can finally look forward and, be ruling in that kingdom, in the kingdom with righteousness. All right. Alongside Yahweh Shai, right? Having the heathens, be put into subjection, into captivity. All right, everything being in this righteous order, and with the kingdom being established, everything will be fixed, right? The earth will be back in its proper state. The animals, all right, the air we breathe, the food won't be defiled, right? So this is all the things we have to look forward to, coming into that righteous kingdom. All right, so this is the book of 2 Peter 3:13. It says, nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. You see? And who is that promise for? That's for, of course, the Israelites. The promise we know was given unto Abraham and was passed down to Isaac and then Jacob. Jacob's seed, of course, becoming the Israelites. All right. It says, look for new heavens and a new earth wherein dwelleth righteousness. And this ain't talk about, a whole new earth, being built up, because you got those who believe, the whole earth is going to be destroyed, and then, a new earth it's going to know, the kingdom of heaven will be established on earth, right? This earth. All right. The only thing that's going to be destroyed, is, of course, the land mass, of Babylon the Great. Okay. But other than that, the kingdom, will be here. We will start here, man. All right. So let's get the next precept. So this is the book of 2 Corinthians 4:17. It says, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. You see? So right now, everything that we're going through, we understand that, it's more to come out of this, Jake can only see, coming up in Esau's kingdom, in Esau's world, right? Jake can only see himself living wickedly, all right? But we hastening in Yahweh Shai's coming, being saved, getting those perfect bodies, being incapable of going off, because right now, we in this flesh, all right, subject to go off, all right? But we know through the, Yahweh Shai's sacrifice, we're covered, but it's still, things we have to do, of course, to, Lord's willing, make our calling and election sure, all right? Doing what's required of us, being servants of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, okay? You don't just get to join this thing and, do whatever you please. No, we do what's according to the scriptures, right? Following the law to the best of our ability, all right? Rehearsing the righteous acts, all right? Warning our people of what's to come, all right? Telling our people who they truly are according to the Bible, right? So let's keep on reading. 2 Corinthians 4:18, it says, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. Exactly. All right. And faith is pretty much when you read it. You know what? Let's actually get it real quick, and we'll come right back. Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Okay. And we ain't able to just of course, just fully see and fully know, how it feels to be in the kingdom. All right. But the Lord has put the spirit on us to have an idea. All right. Brothers have dreams and such, we read the scriptures. All right. We imagine, just everything, being in order, and this is what we have to look forward to. All right. Not the thing, not the carnal things, right? Because everything about this truth is spiritual. You got to be spiritual to have faith, to truly have faith, right? 2 Corinthians 4:18, again, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. And all this stuff is temporal. You working this job. All right. Going through what we going through, this captivity. All right. Our people being wicked, Esau, ruling. All right. Even if you got it on this side, the cars, clothes, women, all that on this side is temporal. We looking at the eternal. All right. Which is the kingdom, which is perfection, which is righteousness. Okay. So this is the book of Jeremiah 31:33. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their power, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know the Lord, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith the Lord, for I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more. All right. So this is going into the kingdom, right? Starting with the first fruit, starting with the elect, they will be made perfect. Okay. And it's going to be, and it's going to be beautiful, man. Brothers is going to be, brothers, sisters, everything is going to be in order, going to be perfect. All right. It's not going to be no war, it's going to be peace, complete bliss, man, complete pleasure, in the kingdom. Okay. It ain't going to be no damn Edomite ruling. It ain't going to be and it ain't going to be no Edomite rebellion, because you got, I believe the IUIC teaches that Gog or the Russians, is going to come back up and, rebel, and it's going to be a fight. No, that's not going to happen, man. All right. The kingdom of heaven is going to, be eternal. All right. It's going to reign forever. All right. There's going to be no reason for the Lord, to allow that to happen, because, Israel will be perfect at that point. The only reason that, we are in this state that we in today is because we went off, all right, worshiping other idols, okay, not following the ways of Yahweh Bashim Al-Bashad. That's the reason that we're in, we going through the curses, right? So this is the book of Luke 12:33. Sell that ye have and give alms. Provide yourself bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, where neither moth corrupteth. You see? So whenever we, coming out, we doing the work, brothers, of course, we go into the spiritual bank account. The works we do according to our faith, the Lord, the angels, Yahweh Shai, they all see that, and everything we doing, is going up into a spiritual bank account. That's why, of course, it's always important to be hot in this thing, not to be cold, lukewarm, lackadaisical. All right, you got to stay hot, on fire, man. All right, because, the Lord's watching. We want to make sure that, when Yahweh Shai, makes his return, we did everything we could to make our calling and election sure, to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling, because we know, what's on the other side. We know what to look forward to, right? So this is the book of Baruch 2:30. It says, for I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves. Yeah, and that's currently what's happening. All right, you're not seeing anybody else doing that. All right, coming out and preaching in the land of their captivity, and professing themselves to be the Israelites, which we know that we're the Israelites, of course. All right, in the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves. Yeah, and it's more than just remembering ourselves. We doing what's required of us, right? Rehearsing the righteous acts. Okay, doing what we can, to get back in, good graces, with the Lord, right? Verse 31, and shall know that I am the Lord their power, for I will give them an heart and ears to hear. All right, this going into the elect, and they shall praise me in the land of their captivity and think upon my name. You see, another scripture proving that the name is important, right? And return from their stiff neck and from their wicked deeds, for they shall remember the ways of their fathers, which sin before the Lord. You see? So we understand that's why when you read Isaiah 14:21, of course that's talk about the Edomites, but let's also talk about us as well. All right, because we're currently going through in this state for what our forefathers have done, which we are our forefathers, right? Well, of course now, we've woken up to who we are, and we're coming back to the Lord. So now it's the Edomites' turn to get that judgment, for what they've done unto us, or for the wickedness, that they've done during their reign, in the earth, right? So this is the book of Baruch 2:34, and I will bring them again into the land I promised them with an oath unto their fathers. You see, so when we are in the kingdom, of course, we're waiting upon the Lord to bring us back to that land, and that's how that, those Ish people, that's in the land, which they're only in a portion of the land, technically. All right, they're not the people. All right, the stuff that they doing, all right, they're not doing what the Israelites, according to the Bible, according to prophecy, prophetically, would do. They're doing exactly what, of course, the Edomites would do. Idumeans. All right, the devil. Baruch 2:34, and I will bring them again into the land which I promised with an oath unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they shall be lords of it, and I will increase them, and they shall not be diminished. All right, and that's going into the promise. All right, through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they shall be lords of it. Lords of what? Not just that land, but of course, the whole earth. All right. But it's all going to start, of course, in Israel and Jerusalem. And I will increase them, and they shall not be diminished. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them to be their power, and they shall be my people. This is also this is that covenant, the full fulfillment of the new covenant, which, that's only going to happen when, we get those perfect bodies, okay, being incapable of going off. All right, and it says, and I will no more drive my people of Israel out of the land that I have given them. All right, so so there you go. And of course that hasn't happened because we're out of that land. All right, we're still in this captivity. All right, but once that new covenant, comes and it is fully here, man. All right, of course, the children of Israel, will rule there forever. All right. But that's pretty much, the point. Lord willing, it was edifying. So with that, I like to give all the honor, praise, glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Ruach HaKodesh. Shalom.